Welcome to Risk Profile Season 2. Harris, we made it to the second season.
Ooh, surprise, surprise.
I mean, I don't know who's more excited about the second season. We've got
our loyal fans.
We've got a lot that we're excited to share with you. As you would expect, the quality of our show is hopefully improving. We'd love to continue to hear feedback from you guys on how we're doing. But we're really excited to work with an Emmy Award-winning producer in preparation for this season, and excited to see what happens.
Yeah, she was great. Yeah. I'm excited as well. So who do we have?
Travis, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Travis Windholz, former founder of Jumar Energy Capital.
There's no former founder, by the way. You're just
once you're a founder, always a founder.
Always a founder.
I love it. It's like I can put that on my tombstone.
It's kind of a disease. Once you contract it, you can only give it to other people. You can't can't get rid of it.
It's kind of like herpes. It's great.
I wasn't going to name any names, but now that you went there, no, that's good. So Travis, I'm been thinking about this for a really long time because you and I are great friends.
Yep.
And I think that what you did when you left your cushy corporate job,
where was this cushy corporate job?
Windholz Energy.
Yeah, 2016. Is that right?
2015.
2015. Okay, so and I tried to go work for you at that time.
Yeah.
But I think that the journey.
There's this whole thing you have to pay people to work sometimes, and you have to have capital to invest.
So you strike out, you go on your own. 2015. What was the thought? Why did you do that?
A lot of thoughts. Big thought is I had an idea, and the idea was a culmination of kind of life experiences and a trip to the mountains. And when I left A&M, I didn't actually know what I was going to do next. And I had a few different thoughts in mind of what I wanted to pursue. Some were less risky. Thought just be a CFO for another energy company, maybe move geographically to another location. But I had this feeling inside me, there's these ideas an idea that I've had that I hadn't quite put the full thought to and executing, but it was a combination of experience I've had early in my career, really a lot with oil and gas and A&M, that said there's an opportunity to actually start a business in this area that I've been thinking about a lot. And it actually hit me climbing in the mountains. I was there, and that's kind of how Jumar got its name. I was climbing and kind of hit me, and thought I'd pursue it. Jumar is the device you use for ascending fixed lines. And so it's my thought around that idea was, at the time, 2015, much like today, energy was in distress. And I thought the way I was thinking about capital formation, investing in the space, could lift some of these companies back out of despair and have a different value proposition and a way to thrive in the environment.
But you were going to do that by totally revolutionizing how assets are purchased and financed.
I don't know about revolutionary, but it was something.
I'll say it because that's exactly what it was.
All right, good. I like this. We're going to go with positive. The idea was around how oil and gas assets were valued, and how do you invest in this space and capture that value.
So hold on. Let's just step back for a second. Here's how much I know about how they're valued. It's usually how much can this asset produce, the cash flows of that gives you the net present value today.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
most of the things people sleep in during class and
what they slept in, and I only read the definition. Right. So how was this different than that?
Okay, so to start off with how business are valued to begin with. So you put a forecast out there. So in Finance 101, you learn about CAPM theory and how cash flows are forecast and how you apply discount rate to those cash flows. Oil and gas adopted a similar practice. The reason why oil and gas is different than other businesses is it has to do with commodity prices. Commodity prices have volatility and they're uncertain. So you can't simply apply the same CAPM theory to oil and gas assets. What you can apply is option theory. And
we're going to have to use small words.
Yeah, you're going to have to dumb this down for me. I've been drinking, so come on. We're going to have to.
All right. So NPV, great analogy. So NPV is the way businesses are valued and invested in. It's a widely accepted form, right? So that assumes that you can forecast, and you assume some deterministic aspects of investing. Big word, sorry.
Just going to keep my buzzer going.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I need like a shock on me. What I saw in oil and gas was if you don't have the ability to know prices in the future, which you don't, wide variation in what prices can be. You know what the strip is today, but you also know that those prices and strip change. And in oil and gas, you have a portfolio of assets that you develop at a certain point in time. So the common practice in oil and gas was you go evaluate your undeveloped inventory and you say, I know that I can have these many locations. This is subjective, but you know it, and you put it in this database. Mainly it's used by Aries and PhD Wind as a evaluation tool. And it's what I call deterministic. You set your drilling schedule to determine the pace of development in those assets.
It's a good thing Exxon hasn't had any problems with this.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So, and on prices, you assume prices are going to be some viewpoint. So bias is very much an important part of oil and gas valuation, or a current form of oil and gas valuation. So you say, I know the pace of my development. I know what prices are going to be, and I invest on that basis. And
so in other words, you kind of predict, or what the future cash flows of the total asset is going to be given a long list of assumptions.
You make a decision now for a lot of things that you set in stone and say, that's how it's going to work out.
Right.
And like in real life, nothing works out how you've planned.
Yeah.
So my approach to valuing assets was something I picked up early in my career, which is in merchant energy, was that when you have a commodity-based business, you don't know prices ever, but you try to find embedded optionality. And by that, I mean, if you have a commodity-based business and you have the right to develop a right to do something, it represents an option. And anybody's had a stock option in their portfolio through work or whatever knows that if you have the right but not obligation to do something, it creates more value than the price that option trades at intrinsically. Meaning, if I have Apple stock at $400 a share and I have a strike at $400 a share, the value of that option is greater than zero. And so I took that same type of thinking of how you value something, and I tried to apply it to oil and gas.
And after a lot of hustle, you executed the first ever finance deal this way.
Well, that kind of came as part of the development of the idea, but it started with valuation. So it's like, how can you value something? And then it's like, how do you actually capture it? So you can identify value differences, but you also have to be able to apply it.
So your first deal, so you did a lot of education and getting people to understand what you were doing, because you use too many big words and it takes a while to.
It's amazing how many times I've been told that.
Hey, not all of us graduated from
this entire
UPenn
journey.
Business School, bro.
I went through a lot of meetings.
Just him and Trump. That was it. That was the only two people.
That's right. But, yeah, small world. Ivanka graduated like a year ahead of me at Wharton. Yeah, we share a lot of same values.
Yeah. So you did a lot of ground game. You educated a lot of the vision that you were casting to solve a problem in oil and gas, and you were 4 years in before you got your first deal done?
First deal. So path before that was recognizing what I actually needed to execute the plan.
Yeah.
So do I have a thesis, valuation? What are the components to actually execute the deployment of capital in the space? So you need to find an asset that fits. Two components are unique to my strategy. You also need risk capital, so equity as part of that. And then you needed this other function, which is trading and hedge management capital, which was another leg of the stool. So I kind of identified which stools were the easiest, or which ones it was a critical path, and realized for me to get this off the ground, I need equity capital. So first step was go out and raise equity capital with this thesis as a basis for funding.
So you raised equity capital like any other E&P startup, and then use that equity base to then have a strong enough balance sheet to actually execute this trade.
Not to execute trades, actually going to the second leg of the stool, which is develop the trading and hedge management component of this thesis. So we worked for another period about a year to educate a major trading firm to say, we have this physical asset that represents a series of physical options, and if you have physical options, you can value them financially, and you can offlay that offlay that exposure and capture the value by doing something financial.
Sure. But
the service they provided had to be integral to this, so I had to educate them on how does physical and financial markets work and how they can be connected through this thesis.
So you get this done and the deal is closing. You're signing that paper. What does that feel like?
It feels really good. And till things still feel good.
Don't. No. What does feel really good mean? Like that was at that point 4 years of effort.
Yeah.
Like finding yourself, like getting to do something that's never been done before.
Yeah, it did feel good. It felt like a manifestation of a lot of things coming together.
And so timeline wise, walk us back to what happened kind of after that, with the collapse in demand and the COVID and all that.
If you don't mind, I'll take one step back because it's long time taking a theoretical framework, trying to apply it, find our first assets, three-legged stool, equity capital, trading, risk management, finding the deal, deploying our first deal. All things working perfectly. So when you have a theoretical idea, you have this idea how it works in perfection.
Yeah.
And then you have the real world, which is how do you actually execute and get something to the next level?
Okay. Yeah.
So we end up acquiring an asset that if I was to do my checkbox of all the things that fits our checklist, it was maybe, it wasn't a 10 out of 10. But you justify it, you rationalize it, and we do that deal. So we do that initial deal. Things are going fine. It's a development program for an asset. The asset works okay, not great. So it's not a problem. We now proved up the two legs of the stool. Right. Always find another asset that works better. Spend time finding the next asset. Had a perfect deal.
Yeah.
One that fit our model. Undeveloped assets. More predictable base than our first initial transaction. Scalable on all fronts on both the equity and trading risk management component of the.
And your hands are doing this.
Feeling good. Yeah. Life's going. And
sounds like there's about to be a big but.
There's a but.
And he did not hedge this bet.
Yeah. You can't. Unfortunately, you can't hedge the execution bet. And so we our trading risk management firm kind of said, wait a second, we need to pause. Let's we're not sure we want to move forward, and they didn't say no to the deal, but they paused the deal. But that caused
is the same thing.
Caused the deal to unwind.
Yeah.
And so we spent a long time trying to get them back onto the same page as us on saying the deal is workable. But then, of course, COVID hit and oil and gas market collapses, which is ironic because if we would have closed the deal, our whole thesis is you can win in any commodity price market.
You modeled this out.
We modeled it out and we would have won.
Yeah.
We won on big time and we've been in a different place. But we didn't. And time goes by.
We've talked about this a couple of times before, Harris, but the entrepreneurial journey is so fragile.
Oh,
yeah.
And, I think there are so many elements from my own story where if this didn't happen, I would have gone a different direction. And part of what we're hoping to highlight is that, you go in and there's no such thing as a former founder. You're always going to be moving towards something, I think, in respect, out of respect for the fact that you can't control everything.
Yep. Well, the mental journey is a tough one. I mean, it's one that it's strange when I reflect back on the journey. Like there was nothing right. And Harris and I talked about this lunch before coming over here, but when you go through the journey, there's no rationalization that says green light, go do this. You simply at some point feel compelled. And I don't know where that comes from, but it's such a powerful and unique thing that I don't think a lot of people get to experience. But when you feel it, hell be damned, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And like, I've only experienced it a few times in ideas. And that was one that when this idea came together, felt it strongly, came home, told my wife, I feel very strongly about this now.
Yeah.
Like I can elaborate the business plan. I can put together a 100-page PowerPoint for you, whatever, that you can walk through. But in the day, like it's just something that has to be done.
Yeah.
Has to be pursued. And I think is what, from my experience, what makes entrepreneurism very unique. There's also a joke that finance people make terrible entrepreneurs, which is a little irony because you always look at risk and return. But it's something like there is some power to it. Like it's a drug. Like it's like you hit it, you take that hit and the power of being able to manifest an idea into the world through something unique to you. I've never experienced something like it. And like it's, I still struggle with it now because to jump to the result, Jumar ended up having to be unwound.
Yeah.
We weren't able to execute the business plan.
So let's step back before we go on to once it unwound. Let's talk about how you actually got here. You were born as a boy in what city? Where did you go to school? How were you different than perhaps your parents? How did you become who you are?
No, man, it
might take longer.
We have like 3 weeks of the podcast. Born a normal path. Well, somewhat normal. Born in Kansas. I'm adopted. As way of background on my upbringing. Loving family. Dad was in oil field service. Hardworking mom, very empathetic woman. Really had, I think, a good dynamic between two parents on how you think about, they didn't push me too hard, but always made me strive to be me. Recognized kind of in high school that I thought somewhat differently than at least my parents. There's elements that we shared, but definitely something that was different. Had no idea what I want to do out of high school, going into college. I followed my now wife to A&M because she went there, and I had no idea what other school I wanted to go to. And then from there, it's just kind of a journey of experiences that I can't point to one thing to say, this is why I am the way I am. But when I reflect on who I am definitely some combination of a series of experiences, very strongly influenced by relationships through those experiences, through people. And then there's some uniqueness to me that I still am. It's a path of self-discovery. That baffles the heck out of me. Like I don't know where that comes from.
So after A&M, I'm guessing you went into the workforce, worked somewhere for a little while. Then you went to go get your MBA at Wharton. Mm-hmm. Then you left that, finished that, went to go work some more, climbed to CFO, did well, started this new company. It went downhill, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even though everything was set up to go perfectly well. But of course, timing is timing and things happen. Mm-hmm. Now what?
So I wound down in the fall of the last company, and I actually have spent the last couple months thinking about the now what. And so same evaluation I went through to start Jumar. What are my skill sets? Where's my experience? How do I balance family obligations, pursuit of something for me? Where's safe? Where's risky? How do you evaluate those things?
Actually, before now what? Sorry to cut you off.
Sure, no.
So when I tried to start a company, I failed, and it was very hard on me to recover from the failure.
Yeah.
To just show my face to even my friends and family.
Right.
And maybe it's because I'm younger and I had less things accomplished, so it might have been easier for you. But how did you handle that failure?
Oh, horribly.
All right, I'm not alone.
No, that's horrible. Yeah. You go through the whys, right? And so the whys are, what could I have done? What were the causation things, the cause and effect? That's how we all generally think. And so you go through those and like, well, okay, that went wrong, that went right. So you justify it. But then you go through, well, if I failed this time, well, am I able to do something different or a different way going forward? And the part that was hard for me was I really loved like the clarity of the idea that came to me was extremely impactful. Like it's hard to describe, but I mean,
you didn't even have a choice.
It's just a vision.
Yeah.
Like you just get hit, and to see that fail is hard because then you say, well, my God, something hit me so strong. How do you find that again? Can you find it again? And then for me, it was an element of despair because I thought, well, all right, I don't have the next idea. And so I can either try to pick this thing back up and find different capital sourcing and execute, or I can go pursue something else. And the other else things were hard because the ideas of where I evaluated my own skill set into the marketplace were there. Like I think I have skills that are applicable and valuable in the marketplace, yet not the same feeling. And where I was trying to pursue, or what I'd like was hoping to find through this break I took between Jumar winding down and Next Venture was the same vision hitting me. Like, okay, this is what you want to go to. And it didn't come. but finally it's come. I have a new vision, but that bridge of time between those two was really hard, extremely hard.
So, as your friend, we've talked through a lot of these moments together.
Exactly.
And
my therapist.
I'm not going to take on that title, but I'm pretty good at drinking beer. So anytime you want to do that,
beer therapy, it's a thing.
Beer therapy, it's a thing. Okay, I'll take it. But just walking through that, echo all of that. What I would also add is that I really strongly, firmly believe, and we talked about this when you were launching, like, it doesn't matter if this succeeds or fails, really.
Mm-hmm.
You executed, you accomplished this goal that seemed pretty impossible from the start. And the fact that you were even able to bring it into existence, even though the rug was pulled out from under you, I can't wait to see what you come up with next, because you learn a lot in times of stress about yourself, about what you can do. And it's really easy to do things well and think you're doing things well. When you go through this and pick yourself back up again, I can't wait.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So what was like a big misconception that you had about maybe starting your own company or doing something yourself versus the way it's maybe sold on television, or how maybe you heard about it in business school? What was different?
That's a very good question. So, how ideas require talent, intellectual capital and talent around them, how they require capital around them to fund that talent and fund the idea and its execution. And that all of that has dynamics and personalities that I substantially underappreciated. So it's these, I think I was gratefully at the time naive about an idea can drive execution. But execution requires so many other dynamic and complex processes and people, which are also complex processes, and personalities, that the move from theoretical to execution was a bigger gap than I thought. I really thought the passion or the intellectual capability that I brought to the table on the idea would bridge a farther gap than what it actually did.
That is exactly how I felt, because I had a good idea and I was like, oh, I'll just run with this. I'll make it happen. No problem. And boy, were there problems.
Yeah.
Immediately, it was an idea is not enough. The execution of said idea requires so much more.
Yep.
And that's really where I struggled to put it together. But it sounds like our situations were different in the sense that you actually did execute properly. However, we live in an ever-changing world, and things happened.
No,
and
that's absolutely right.
That's it. So to piggyback off that, what's next?
I think I have the entrepreneur bug fully at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll have you again in a year.
Hopefully, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I would appreciate it. So a lot of things I struggled with during this process, and a lot of them were around mental health issues. So how do you stay positive as you...
After the failure, right?
Well, even before then.
Oh, okay.
Like even just dynamics of stress, anxiety, uncertainty, and how you face those. There's people who are built differently than others. And like my relationship with Mark, one of the reasons I love him is he has just a glass half full perspective almost all the time. And he's a special person because of it. I recognize in myself, I'm not that person. And you go through a lot of struggles on what, why, the how, and you need people to talk to, and friendships are great, but you also need sometimes assistance. So, what I'm looking at starting now is, I utilize psychological and psychiatric help for dealing with depression and anxiety. And I think that, I recognize it in other people. And I think that there's a better method of providing that service to the masses. I think it's an underutilized service, and we need a lower access cost. We need to provide more availability to those services. And I think you can do it through a digital platform, or at least with digital platform help. So right now I'm working on a business model that works through identification and assessment and adoption of the need for mental health services being both mental well-being, which is a more call it in the normal framework, and also mental illness, which is something I've experienced and that I think a lot of people have a need for assistance. So I'd like to be able to provide easier access to individuals seeking out those services. And I think there's a business model that's being created out of that.
Do you think...
I'm excited. Are you excited?
Yeah. Do you think entrepreneurship is a mental illness?
It's funny. I'll plug another guy who I've never met, but actually was great. Stephen Hayes has a podcast called Stigma. Great podcast. Entrepreneurship is not a mental illness, but I do think it attracts certain personality types that do probably disproportionately have mental illnesses associated with that pursuit. So you're not necessarily mental illness if you pursue entrepreneurism, but I do think it attracts a certain individual.
And speaking to those individuals, what do you say to the entrepreneurs behind you?
The entrepreneurs behind me?
Yeah.
Passion's key. Like for me, monotony is a horrible thought process. I simply can't just cut a paycheck and live life. And there's ways to balance life, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you have that mindset of entrepreneurism, you have to do a lot of self-reflection. You have to have passion, ability to execute, ability to work with other people for an idea that was once yours, but you have to give that up as you pursue the idea. And you have to be willing to live with failure. And I thought the latter part was no problem. Like, yeah, you can fail, just do it again. So hard to do. And you really have to do it with open eyes.
Yeah.
But again, done it, been there, hit hard, going to do it again.
Nice. Can't wait. Well, thank you, Travis. It's been a pleasure hearing your story. We look forward to seeing what you do next. We will hopefully have you again on in another year with your new story and what you've done since then. To the audience at home, thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Please follow us on LinkedIn. Please send us an email if you have any suggestions or more things that you would like to hear about. We're all ears. We want to make this better. We want to make this better for you guys. This has been Harris and Mark and our wonderful guest, Travis. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having me.